Okay, I guess it's time to get to the entire second half of this story. It's crazy to say that. I feel like I just read the whole thing, but somehow I've only read about 50% of it. I don't know what to expect, and I mean that in the most sincere way possible. I have zero clue what to expect. I expect it to feel different, I guess, considering the idea of meat and candy being like a dichotomy in storytelling. Um, I don't know how it will fit into the overall story. I don't know if it will be an entirely different, like, alternate branching universe that has been created, like, based on, like, choosing both of these. I don't know. Perhaps, they both go on their own story, but then they kind of, like, lock in into the same timeline at the end. Maybe this is just filling in gaps that we didn't see during Meet. I don't know. I have no idea what to expect, but I guess here we go. Candy Epilogue 1, Chapter 1. I'm still just going to read with my normal voice because I don't know if Dirk or Calliope will be involved in this. I'm assuming, but I guess we'll see. Candy was definitely the right choice, John thinks, as he munches thoughtfully on a strawberry swirl mint. It cracks to splinters between his teeth. Incredibly tasty splinters, the consistency of which have absolutely no existential baggage to them. The splinters dissolve quickly, leaving behind the impression they were made of nothing at all, but for a cloying essence determined to linger behind. With some distance from his traumatic anime dreaming, the fatalistic mood that he's been walking around with all day seems somewhat melodramatic, embarrassing even. Who has time for nihilism when it's such a beautiful day? You know what? Maybe I'll stay after all. R- really? Yeah. Now that I've had some time to think about it, is Lord English really that big of a deal? I mean, I know Rose said it was a big deal, that canon would dissipate if I didn't go do it, whatever that means. Isn't it just as likely that I could mess up a bunch of stuff if I go back there? The idea of going back in time or going back into canon or whatever and fighting this huge battle that serves some vague purpose I'm not even sure I understand, it feels so heavy, and I'm not feeling that heavy suddenly. I feel kind of the opposite, actually. I feel like maybe I just don't give a shit. I don't mean in a bad way, it's just, well, I'm already here, living my life with my friends, and I think I just want to stay back on Earth, forget I heard of Lord English, and just relax. Is that selfish of me? I don't know, it just seems like a lot of responsibility for one person. So maybe instead of taking the fate of everyone's existence into my hands, I should just stay here and try to enjoy life? Even John has to admit his rationale doesn't sound particularly satisfying. Now that he's reflecting on everything he just said, it really strikes him as a bunch of empty headed babble. But then again, it's like he was saying, his head does feel lighter. Maybe he doesn't care if his reasoning sucks. Maybe he just doesn't care about any of the high stakes or existential gravity related to his conversation with Rose. Maybe he doesn't care about much of anything except the here and now, the company of his friends, and the pleasant breeze flowing through the park today. He's feeling quite insubstantial when he thinks about it, superficial, and a bit sappy toward his friends. So what if he wants to make an insubstantial, superficial, and sappy decision? Are you absolutely sure about this, John? He looks up at the trees, at the sunlight glittering through the crisscrossing fronds. Has the sky always been that blue? A leaf spirals down lazily and lands on his forehead. He plucks it off and studies the veins running through it. At each fork in the veins, he supposes the leaf as a whole is making a certain kind of decision to go this way or that. It certainly seems like one way of looking at the leaf now that he bothers to really scrutinize one. It also seems to him, with just as great a sense of clarity, that no one of this leaf's decisions ever mattered even the tiniest fucking bit to anybody. Not to the tree, not to the world, not even to the leaf itself. He flicks the delicate green metaphor away with a flourish of disdain and sudden conviction. Yeah, actually, I don't think I've ever been so sure of anything in my life. Roxy's stoic countenance washes away abruptly, and she lets out a happy squeal? No, that was kind of a sexist way to describe it. It's definitely a girly noise, though, and not what John was expecting. Without warning, she launches herself into his arms. Oh my god, John! That's amazing! I'm so stoked! She bears your nose in the crook of his neck and starts crying. Huh? She's definitely sniffing a little, and his skin feels wet against hers. John makes incidental eye contact with Calliope when he raises his arms to wrap them around Roxy's back. He's startled for a moment, but Calliope just looks at him with that big, serene smile on her skull. So, okay, this isn't weird or anything, this super intimate physical interaction he's having with her maybe girlfriend right in front of her. It's just that Roxy's been so distant for years, and now John has no idea where the boundaries are drawn. He grins and hugs her back as hard as she's hugging him. Maybe his friendships aren't as damaged as he worried. Maybe it's like his friends were his actual family this whole time, and they were just waiting for him to pick up the phone or to come along and hug him. Roxy pulls back and claps excitedly. This is going to be so effing awesome. Yes, I think that you have made an excellent choice, John. I can already feel the aura of equivocation that's been hanging over us all these years fading. Equivocation? Oh, sorry. What I mean is that I think we've all had a hard time moving on from what we experienced in our old universe. Now we finally can put that ugliness behind us. Oh, John, this is amazing. I have such big plans for you. Plans? Stop asking so many questions, dummy. It's going to be great. It will be more than great. But first, there's one last thing you must do with your retcon powers. Someone that you need to help. Someone that only you can help. Calliope leans in close. The angle of the sun makes it so that she dips into shadow. The sharp recesses of her skeletal face turn those shadows black. For a moment, her voice sounds the way wind does when it howls through a narrow chasm. You must be the bard. You must free the bard from his prison. Huh? Did he hear that right? He can't imagine she could possibly mean Gamzee. Oh, fuck. No fucking way. Okay. Calliope puts her hands together and pulls back, smiling sweetly. Her voice is sugar sweet again. Let poor Gamzee out of the fridge, John. The time has come. Poor Gamzee? He's surely learned his lesson by now. If we are to turn over a new page in this story, we should turn over the page for everyone. Gamzee must begin seeking redemption immediately. He has suffered enough. Has he, though? Oh my, yes, absolutely. Are you sure? Of course. John glances at Roxy, seeking support. She smiles at him benignly, apparently having no opinion whatsoever on this topic. Sure, okay, he can't help but make a disgusted face at the thought of it, but he shrugs. Why the hell not? He's feeling lighter, remember? If it's time to let go of his long-held worries and hang-ups, then so too it might be time to let loose a long-suffering clown. If this is to be the age of redemption, then let it begin, he decides. Not with a bang, but with a honk. Chapter 2. John zaps back to the quietest point in the fridge's impressively storied timeline that he can pinpoint, which is on the land of Tombs and Krypton, T-minus about half an hour before his final battle against every dude they all had to fight to get the hell out of Dodge. As the name of the land would imply, the planet's surface is covered in tombs, each an ancient skyscraper piercing the brilliant, gaseous thunderclouds above. But there's only one tomb he's come for, a simple, household refrigerator, just like the one he grew up with. He pops into cannon at the end of a rooftop, so high that the chemical storm coursing through the atmosphere sets his hair on edge. At the other end of the roof are Dirk and Dave, doing something he'd never thought he'd see. They're hugging. Not just regular non-committal hugging, they are empathetically hugging the shit out of each other. Dave's face is buried in Dirk's side, and Dirk's got both arms around him in a way that looks like he's never actually hugged another human being before. Sensing that this is probably something he shouldn't be seeing, he tiptoes towards Gamzee's would-be sarcophagus as he as carefully and quietly as he can, and places his hands just above the thick aluminum hull. The moment John's palms hit the fridge, Dirk turns to look at him. His head only moves an inch. Slowly, he lowers one eyebrow and returns to his poignant and deeply personal business with Dave, as if he hasn't observed anything worth acknowledging at all. Which, John supposes, is for the best. He isn't trying to mess up the timeline any more than he needs to. He's only here to steal a refrigerator that has been recently used to entomb a clown. He has enough on his plate with this idiotic heist as it is. Anyway, he decides to mind his own damn business and get the fridge back to Earthsea. He zaps himself in the fridge back to the same picnic grounds he departed from, while cleverly leaving the chains wrapping the fridge behind on Lotak. So, I'm back. Everyone get ready for this fucking guy, I guess. With the same delicacy he'd used to touch a toilet bowl in the public bathroom, he grabs the handle of the fridge and pulls. Gamzee pops out immediately, sweating, gasping for breath, and smelling like socks that have been worn continuously for 2 weeks straight. John rears back and pinches his nose shut. Calliope shoots John a sharp look like a stern teacher would. Oh god, how am I gonna fucking do it? Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Honk! Poor thing. It's all right now. You're all right. Take a moment to catch your breath, Mr. Clown. You'll be just fine. Oh dear. What is it, sir? Tell us what pains you. Let it all out, friend. We are here for you. I've been a bitch-ass naughty motherfucker. Calliope nods knowingly and pats him on the back. I'm so sorry for all. I did what I had to do, alright? I had to commit to the bit. I up and done some motherfuckers raw. Those motherfuckers, most of them, all who I called as my friends. I put the straight up fucking harshness at them and it wasn't motherfucking nice to me. Not one bit. And now I'm on an emotional place from sweating my hard times in the hunger trunk. A fate to which I surely got my deserve on for. And it gave me all the time to rethink my lot and get considered into what a rat pile of the nastiest garbage I've been my whole motherfucking life. And I got my epiphany going in there. Like, all motherfucking bathed in the righteous epiphanies, yo. Pretty much balls out immersed in the emotion breakthroughs, my good ninjas. What do you mean by this? Anyway. And I came to getting some of my realizations right down fucking locked. Locked tighter than I was like a bitch in that fridge. And those realizations being something all motherfucking thusly of sorts. I'm a bad, bad man. And I'm here to fucking redeem my motherfucking self. Honk! Calliope, eyes closed, continues with her sympathetic gestures. She pats him on the back, nods very slowly, issues an now and then. Only while he is distracted by his own sobs does she steal a glance at her phone, tipping the fact that she too wouldn't mind if this redemptive soliloquy could hurry itself along. These redemptive fucking Eureka thunderclaps all banging at my think pad, getting me to go all like, boo-hoo, I'm bad. What I'm saying about is the raw shit I did got some explanations to make you see the truth. The truth that my gnarliness had a motherfucking tent full of root causes you gotta indulge me at. Listen up, boys and hoes, 'cause here comes a bunch of noise that's morally fucking mitigating as shit. Honk. Oh, Jesus. Shh. I've been all like abused and stuff, homies. As a child, I got motherfucking neglected on by a stern old fatherly goat. I was a disappointment on him, and I can't say as I blame him for abandoning the shit out of his useless kid. I would motherfucking done the same shit to me if I was a big cruel goat. So that explains, like, pretty sure most of my crimes in a way that makes a motherfucker want to take his forgiveness out for a fucking spin. There's other reasons to consider, like, shit that makes this redemption arc fucking tight like an uncracked elixir. Like, how's my purple blood meant I got the culture pressures put on me to be a salty damn jester for life? What about the hand the messiahs dealt me, my bitches? So, how can I full and truly fucking get blamed on for when it comes to a little bit of subjugation I got culturally hornswoggled up to doing, and also tragically goat abused, which needs to make you shed a tear for this motherfucker lest you want to be as atrocious as me. And such is why I'm grabbing hold of my repentance as firm and serious as I would a whore's titty. My redemption arc is truly the dankness. I mean, it's hard, and I'm going sincere at it like one sad and sorry bad boy motherfucker. From this day forward, I plan to get my pledge on to be a changed clown. Truly, a new-ass motherfucker thanks to my new friends.
Bravo. Fuck yeah. Ugh, that hurts my voice so much. While John's two friends are busy hugging it out with arguably the worst person he has ever met in his life, he tiptoes a few yards away from the group and slips his phone out of his pocket. There's only one person in the universe who can truly understand what John's going through right now. Hey, Therese, are you around?
What do you want?
You wouldn't believe what's happening just behind me right now.
I probably would.
No, you won't. Check it out. John discreetly holds his phone over his shoulder and takes a Snapchat of Gamzee sobbing in Calliope's arms. Roxy is beside them, nodding along solemnly.
Holy shit.
I know, right? He's crying like a little wriggler. Go over... Why do they keep saying wriggler? I feel like it was wiggler before, and now they're saying wriggler.
Go over and give him a kick in the codpiece for me.
Can't.
John, I am asking you to do a simple favor for an old and dear friend. Do not be difficult.
I don't think that would go over well. Everyone's taking this all weirdly seriously. Apparently we're gonna let him have a redemption arc? Yeah, it's... Well, what is there to even say? It's literally the dumbest fucking idea I've ever heard, but what can you do?
Shove him back in the fridge and throw it in the ocean is what?
Pretty much.
Why are you idiots even bothering with this fool again?
Don't ask me, this is a Calliope thing.
Oh, God.
I guess she roped Roxy into it. So I'm just going along with it too. I don't even care, actually. I mean, he smells awful, but...
Ugh.
I guess that's just what's happening now. The asshole clown is back. Life goes on.
It didn't need to, though. Not for him, at least.
Speaking of life, how's it going out there?
Fine. Pretty boring flying around and stuff. You know how it is. The search continues.
Any sign of her yet? You've been gone, like, a really long time, you know?
I'm sure you see it that way. From my point of view, it's a little different. Anyway, no turning back now.
Yeah, I know. Everybody misses you, though. Probably even... Gamzee.
Ugh. Well, that settles it. I must never return. Sorry, Egbert.
I should have never told you about his shitty redemption arc. I blew it.
Yep. Anyway, gotta go. Next time we speak, you owe me a report of exactly one punch in the clown deck. Bye, dork.
Smiling, he pockets his phone and heads back up to the Gamzee pity party. Gamzee's sobbing so performatively that many care patient civilians have stopped to watch. By the looks on their faces, not a single one of them has ever been exposed to such clown grief. Pulled away from Calliope's embrace, he's now addressing the gathering crowd about the importance of genuine repentance. Calliope comes to stand with John, her hands folded behind her back and her expression peaceful.
Thank you for this, John.
You're welcome. Something feels different, but he can't put his finger on it. Okay, this is odd. This is really odd. Chapter 3. Yes, something feels very different. Thurk's hands begin to shake, so violently that he drops his screwdriver into the chassis of the battle bot he's working on. It clangs around for a bit, landing somewhere that will doubtlessly be very inconvenient to retrieve. It doesn't matter. There's no more time for rap battles, or politics, or wacky hijinks, or an adventurous nature. There's no time left for anything. Moisture beating at his temples, Dirk staggers away from his workbench and braces himself against the wall. His knees are weak, head spinning, palms so sweaty that the concrete feels smooth under them. He nearly drops his phone while attempting to dramatically auto-dial Jane's number through the haze of his trembling, sudorific stupor. Hey, Jane. Bad news. Cancel everything.
Excuse me, what?
All plans. Cancel them. It's over.
What's over, Dirk?
I just told you. Everything. Because we're canceling it.
Dirk, are you quite okay?
Yeah, I'm cool.
You sound terrible. It's unlike you to call quits on a caper like this without offering a lengthy diatribe on it.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, lengthy diatribes are over too. They're canceled.
Jane gasped loudly, without a hint of irony. I don't understand.
Don't worry about it, just do as I say. He hangs up and brings up his contacts so that he can text Jake and cancel all their televised fight for this foreseeable forever. He then blocks Jake's number, because if it's not worth explaining to Jane, it's definitely not worth explaining to Jake. Then again, nothing is ever really worth explaining to Jake. Jake's number is barely even worth storing in his phone, if Dirk is being perfectly honest. Through the workshop window, Dirk can see the sun touching the horizon. Ah, exquisite. He takes a moment to appreciate the sublime synthesis of the atmosphere and the existential crisis he is currently experiencing. The sun is setting both physically and metaphorically right now. Not bad, he thinks, then corrects himself, because while there is always time to delight in the volatility of causality, the whole situation is actually, and for real, astonishingly bad. What the fuck is going on here? Epilogue 2, Chapter 4. Rose's eyes flutter open to the sound of a heart monitor and at the sight of a featureless white ceiling. Fluorescent lights, diaphanous curtains, everything crisp and clean. A hospital? Wait, this doesn't seem right, she thinks. When she closed her eyes, she was dramatically lingering about her bedroom at home. She'd just taken a handful of pills and said goodbye to... John! She shoots up in her bed, tugging the IV taped under her elbow. Kanaya is sitting at her bedside, hemming a sundress. She thins her lips and gives Rose a half-lidded look. John, I see. Is there something I should know? This is the sort of joke that would have gone over better if it had not been made at this exact moment. With the distance between them lately, Kanaya's jab lands like a rock plunging into a stagnant pond. Instinctively, Rose raises her hand to her forehead, but there's no pain there. Her head is in the clearest it's been in months. Kanaya, what happened? Kanaya throws her sewing project aside and sweeps in close, wrapping a cool palm around Rose's arm. Her voice quakes, but retains most of its porcelain decorum. I came and found you passed out in front of the load caper. Your skin was freezing, and you were barely breathing. Oh. The doctor said that your heart rate dropped below 30 beats per minute, which, as I understand, it is somewhat dire. I see. How are you feeling? Rose considers this for a very long time, eyes fixed on the window at the other end of the room. The night is dying behind the thin, pale curtain. She can barely see the moon. I feel... She looks back to Kanaya, eyes wide and bright. Kanaya, I feel fine. It's been such a long time since she's felt anywhere in the ballpark as fine. That it's almost an out-of-body experience to say the word. She feels giddy. No headaches. No headaches, no visions, nothing at all. Wait, is John okay? Where is he? Did he leave? Leave? Oh, no, John's fine. He didn't go anywhere, except I suppose to leave his house for once. Multiple days in a row, even. Rose shuts her eyes and takes a deep breath. For some reason, she's never felt so relieved in her life. She thinks about what she was about to send John off to do, and her feelings of grim urgency surrounding the matter. And yet, for the life of her, she can't bring herself to care about whatever it was she felt was so direly important about his decision. All that matters to her now is that he's safe, in good health, and spending time with those he cares about. And apparently, due to a perfectly inexplicable turn of events, so is she. The door to the room creaks open, and in slips a smiling carapacian in blue scrubs. Rose listens to Kanaya ask fretful questions about her condition. The nurse responds by tapping her clipboard in a musical rhythm. Rose opens her eyes. She stares at the knob of her wrists and frowns. She's not sure why this sensation should be concerning. It's not like her memory is slipping away. She remembers the conversation she had with John this morning quite clearly, as she does the previous years of declining health and troubled obsessive thoughts about canon, dissipation, and other such abstractions. What's slipping away instead is the feeling that any of it mattered at all. Was she insane to be so consumed by such lofty concerns? And is she only beginning to experience clarity today for the first time in ages? When the nurse leaves, Kanaya puts a hand over the wrist that she is so preoccupied with. Is something wrong? It just seems like all of this is happening so quickly, even abruptly. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you prefer for your consciousness to continue to disintegrate? Don't be ridiculous, Kanaya. What I would prefer is to be here with you. Really here with you for the first time in a long time. Kanaya tips her face away from the light to hide it in the curve of her shoulder. Rhodes reaches out and takes her wife's hands in her own. They're colder than she remembers. Are you crying? Since when have I been known to cry? Quite often, actually, but usually because you're angry. Well, I'm not angry. It was hard on you, wasn't it? My illness, combined with all your duties to the mother grub, the pressures of the changing political situation. With all that on your mind, it can't have been pleasant to have come home and take care of me as well. I can see now that it was all terribly unfair to you. It was nobody's fault, Rose, so please don't take any undue responsibility onto your shoulders. Since when have I been known to do such a thing? Kanaya's lips twitch into a smile, and she laughs sadly. Her laughter forces the tears out. They drip down her perfectly made-up face in thick trails. I really did think I had lost you. It's not that I thought you would die. It was that you felt so far away. What you were going through was something that I could not possibly understand, no matter how patient I was, or how deeply I loved you. There was a feeling I couldn't shake that something terrible was going to happen to us, something that neither of us could stop. A powerful outside force would take you away from me, and I couldn't stop myself from thinking that maybe that it would be for the best. Kanaya, I can see now that this is completely ridiculous. Kanaya laughs again. Gaily this time, as if some terrible dark weight has been lifted from her shoulders. She lets out a thin, shaky breath afterward. It's like the noise fills the room back up with oxygen. Rose hadn't realized that she'd held her breath at all. The shadow hanging over Kanaya's thoughts was hanging over hers as well. But now that she said it aloud, the darkness dissipates without ever materializing into its true shape. Rose uses the hem of her hospital gown to wipe the tears off Kanaya's face. It really is. Honestly, Kanaya, I've never heard such a ridiculous thing in my life. You were talking to me as if I am a pupa again. I'm sorry. No, do not apologize. It has been a long time since you've had the energy to use such a condescending tone of voice. And, as you know, it's one of the things about you I find most adorable. I can imagine how adorable I've been drifting around the house like a sweaty, drugged-up ghost. While you know how I feel about the careless imbibing of human intoxicants, you were still very adorable. Not to be trite, but there is nothing that could make you not beautiful to me. What a relief, considering that we are both going to be young and magically fit literally forever. Kanaya presses a snotty, uncharacteristically imperfect kiss to the back of Rose's hand, right beneath where she wears her wedding ring. If you would have me forever. Who else? There's no one who understands me like you, Kanaya. No one who looks at me the way you do. No one who brings me back down to earth with ceaseless, brutal honesty like you. I have no idea what I'd do without you. You would probably do just fine. Yes, but I'd be very unhappy. They smile at each other as the first rays of the sunrise peek through the blinds. Did you hear that John left his house? Multiple days in a row, even? No fucking way. That's incredible. Never heard of such a thing. Someone leaving their house? Stop the fucking presses. Carcat. It is a slow news day in the Consort Kingdom or something. Or is it a slow news day in the Consort Kingdom or something? Jade finishes pruning a dead bulb off her arum lily plant and flicks it at Carcat's forehead. Then she politely pulls the blind shut because, God forbid, even a sliver of sunlight ever infect Dave and Carcat's hive. Jade doesn't live here technically, but there's domestic evidence of her all over the hive. Her plants, her base, her clothes slung over the couch where she sleeps for weeks at a time. I'm being serious, dump ass. I was really worried about him. I'm being serious too. I was actually beginning to wonder if John had died. But what the fuck were we supposed to do about it? It's not like he answers the phone. Well, if you care so much, then maybe don't respond with sarcasm when I tell you that he's getting better. Guys, it's not a competition. We were all worried about John. Were we? When's the last time either of you tried to hang out with him? When's the last time either of us left the hive? Yeah, shut-ins living in glass hives shouldn't throw a... Actually, if we lived in a glass hive, way too much light would come in for Carcat's brutal photosensitivity issues. So we'd probably cover all the walls with, like, lots of curtains and sheets of thick fabric. So I guess maybe we could throw stones. Like, kind of small ones so the fabric could easily absorb the momentum. Also, me and Carcat would probably be too lazy to throw the stones that hard anyway, so I think actually the scenario is pretty workable here. It provides for a certain threshold of allowable minimum hypocrisy. Dave, this sucks. No, it doesn't. I'm giving thoughtful and critical consideration to a cliche which is long past due. A glass house with wall-to-wall curtains creates what I'm going to theorize is an incredibly important self-owning buffer. This is a huge breakthrough, and also it's fucking science. You of all people should appreciate the work being done here. Oh my god. I never thought I'd be thinking of you as my weird nerd friend by the time we were in our 20s. Yeah, well, I never thought you'd be like the premier woo girl on the planet. What are you even doing here with us? Don't you usually spend your weekends at like 48-hour interspecies raves doing Arctic expedition with Jake or whatever? Those two things are not always mutually exclusive. Ugh. Jade floats over to the couch, shooting her two besties a salacious smile. She taps Carcat on the nose as she passes by. I am just enjoying my youth. You could be enjoying it too. She retrieves one of her bras from where it's hanging over the back of the couch. She starts changing it right there, doing the mystical sleight of hand girls seem to be born with the knowledge of, where the bra goes off and then on again without the shirt being removed. Jade doesn't exactly have the best understanding of interpersonal boundaries, having been raised mostly by a dog, but still. It's a weird, intimate, and uncomfortably close to sexual thing to be doing in front of other people. Dave and Carcat share a vaguely mortified look. Jade sort of lives here, but she doesn't that sort of live here. But seriously, what do you two even hold up in here what do you two even do hold up in here together all the time? Carcat snorts, still pointedly not looking at her. Oh, I'm sorry. Have you not seen Dave's ill-begotten art empire? He's got this bleh, Jesus Christ! He's got his opposable digits stuck in so many double-stacked husk loaves that even I don't know what his pen names. Even I don't know all his pen names. Okay, so that's what Dave does. What do you do? Jade puts her feet on the floor and pads over so she can sling her arms over the back of the couch and lay her cheek on the cushion. The look she gives Carcat is just shy of devious. Carcat defensively scuttles to the other end of the couch, where he ends up pressed flush against Dave's entire left side. I, sit around and play video games all day? Hey, that's not the only thing I do. I've done laundry.
Once or twice.
Also, what humans refer to as groceries. I do the groceries.
That's not a fucking figure of speech, man. You don't do the groceries, you go out and buy them. And even then, you don't actually do that.
Like, fuck,
Dave puts both hands over Karkat's mouth and does a stage whisper over his shoulder. He means he uses the alchemizer in the basement sometimes.
Hey, whose side are you on?
Oh, and when he's in a bad mood, he'll go yell at trolls on the internet. Not like trolls as in like the troll species. I mean literal trolls who talk shit online. I don't know, a bunch of them could be actual trolls, I guess, but not strictly.
Dave, don't fucking tell her about that.
Dave reaches around Karkat's face to give him a gentle poke in the cheek. He keeps his finger there longer than strictly necessary, smiling the noticeably restrained smile characteristic of the Striders. The expression is so warm and blatant that it can't help but draw Jade's attention. She frowns and pushes her glasses up to the bridge of her nose, making some quick calculations in her head. They're so obvious, she thinks, and yet here they are. Virginal losers who are performative about sitting exactly a foot apart whenever they're in public. So pathetic it makes her want to howl at the moon in sorrow. What she's planning isn't seduction. It's a public service. Why not, dude? I think it's cute. He's on all the major political sites, of course, but he spends most of his time going after people who leave abusive comments on my Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff posts. Like, he's got a whole complex network of burner accounts, sock puppets on my homepage set up for every possible scenario. Jesus Christ. It's incredible. He's driven at least 10 people off the site by creating thinly veiled parody accounts of their usernames.
Stop talking about this. My exploits are heroic. Go absolutely fuck yourself.
Karkat, shush. I'm so proud of you. Couldn't have done better myself. Well, I definitely could have, but I have better things to do with my time.
Thank you, Dave. That was heartwarming and not even a little bit embarrassing. Consider my honor undeniably defended.
Actually, Karkat, it's more like you're the one defending his honor. That's so cute. A knight white knighting for another knight. Dave, it's like Karkat's your adorable little house husband.
What the fuck is a husband?
Dave unpokes his finger from Karkat's cheek and tries to show me some space between them on the couch, but there's nowhere to go. Karkat is sandwiched between him and Jade, who is reaching out to put 2 fingers of her own at the center of his chest. She bounces them there a few times, enjoying the way troll skin is just a bit thicker than human skin, taut like the membrane over a poorly maintained drum. A husband? She begins walking her fingers up the length of Karkat's sternum. Karkat knows damn well what a husband is. He's been force-fed enough bad movies from Dave to pick any human euphemism you can name. He still plays dumb sometimes for comedic effect, to irritate his friends, or to simply avoid a topic of conversation altogether. If he'd known it would only fan the flames of discussion in this case, he would have kept his mouth shut. A husband is a little like what you both do already, only with certain benefits. Her fingers reach the hollow of Karkat's throat just in time to catch him swallow. He starts to sweat.
What kind of benefits?
Don't play dumb, Karkat. Jade, dude, come on, leave him alone. Jade does not come on. She glides her fingers up under Karkat's chin so that they can rest on his lips, which are a little chapped. It doesn't take much work to pop them open and slide both fingers in. If you're really that clueless, I can show you. Karkat looks like an animal with its legs caught in a trap. Eyes flickering, breath getting shallow. His bottom lip is trembling where Jade is stroking it with her thumb. It would be pretty easy to mistake his reaction for arousal, so it's understandable that Jade is extremely surprised when Karkat snaps his jaw shut and chomps down on her hand. Ow! She flies back, literally spiraling up towards the ceiling, so fast that her skirt puffs up and she gets all tangled in her clothes for a few seconds. She clutches her wounded hand and glares daggers at Karkat, ears flat under her long dark hair. Karkat, what the hell?
What the hell? You're seriously asking me what the hell? Jade, you were trying to choke me to death with your weird, soft human fingers. What were you trying to do? Reach into my chest and pull out my fucking pump biscuit for a midday snack? Is this because you're half bark beast now? No! I was flirting, you dummy! Oh my god, you two really are hopeless. Why do I even waste my time? That's a good fucking question!
Jade is pissed, but not enough to leave.
Instead, she plops down on the opposite end of the couch and petulantly crosses her arms. Karkat peels himself off Dave and slumps into the dip between the cushions while setting even more deeply into one of his better practiced pouts. Dave clears his throat. So, apropos of nothing, just a cool segue into a completely different topic for no reason. Jade and Karkat both stare at him. He makes a casual motion with his hand, a smooth wrist swivel like he's at a turntable scratching one song into the next. That's the effect he's going for, at least. You guys hear that Jane was gonna run for high office?
No fucking way.
Oh, wow. You mean...
Yep. The fucking presidency of Earthsea.
I mean, she's been positioning her megacorp and stocks in a ways that look super suspicious the last year or so, so I wondered about it, but I didn't think she'd actually do it.
Nah, she was totally gonna pull the trigger on it after all these years, but decided against it at the last minute for some reason.
Oh, thank fucking God, that would have been a complete disaster.
I know, right? That's what I said when Roxy told me. Especially for the economy.
Really? The economy? That's what you think is bad about it?
Oh, yeah, and Troll think is bad too, I guess.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Your priorities are, number one, the economy, which, let me remind you, is built entirely of infinite fake money, which we can make as much of as we want. Number two, the potential genocide of my people.
Okay, wow, let's, slow our roll here. Let's slow any roll that makes me seem more xenophobic than I am, okay?
Whatever you say, Dave, not xenophobic Strider.
That's good. Let's keep using phrase not xenophobic in sentences that contain my name.
Sure, man. That doesn't sound like something a xenophobe shithead would say at all.
Look, I'm not the bad guy here. Jane is. Or was until she decided not to run for president. Let's all just thank whatever Christ was responsible for making whatever decision resulted in her deciding not to do that.
What? Don't change the subject, xenophobe.
No, look, I'll be the first to say that Jane is xenophobic as fuck. I'm not, at all. But she is.
Okay, dude.
But I don't really think she'd go as far as to commit genocide. That's really exaggerating her faults. We'd have to get pretty far away from the people we were when we started all this for that to be a viable outcome.
Well, I hope she gets a better hobby. There are a lot less ominous things she could do with her time. What, fucking her way through half the population of Earthsea?
Jade pinches her ear and twists hard, smiling pleasantly. Pinches his ear and twists hard, smiling pleasantly.
Get fucked, Karkat.
Chapter 6. So that went differently. I guess before we move on. That went differently. Jane's not running for president, I guess, so that automatically makes things way different. So I guess this is a complete different branch. This isn't just before I started, I said maybe it's just filling in gaps. That's most certainly not what's happening. Gamzee is back. John is alive. Jane isn't running for president. So things are genuinely different in this branch. The question is, how does that resolve itself? At the end of the epilogue, I shouldn't even talk that much about this because I guess I'll just fucking see if I read. But at the end of the epilogues, I know that Beyond Canon is going to start. How will these two entirely different branches somehow be able to create the continuity that will result in a single comic? Unless it really is just we're just, from this point forward, we're literally just following two timelines completely separately from each other. That seems kind of insane. I'm not gonna lie, that seems kind of wild. If it's just two simultaneously ongoing stories in two different timelines, I'm assuming in some way they'll merge into one story. Yeah, I guess we'll see. But that's my number one, how the fuck is that gonna work out? Anyway, chapter 6. No one is answering the door to Jake's mansion, so Jane lets herself in. There's almost no crime on Earthsea, and so almost no one locks their door. In fact, most doors do not have locks, which has been terribly unfair to the struggling locksmith industry.
Once, at John's 18th birthday, Dave Strider engaged Jane in a shockingly aggressive debate about the economy in which he accused her of supporting a neoliberal corporate welfare for pointing out this exact problem, which was, well, such a baffling incident that Jane is still thinking about it at absolute random intervals 5 years later. She has an honorary business degree from almost every university on the planet. Dave hasn't even finished middle school. What does he know about the effective and ethical rigors of corporate bailouts? Well, Jane thinks with a heavy sigh, now that she's not running for president, it doesn't really matter, does it? Jake? Jane feels rather like a princess in an animated film, with the way her voice echoes up 3 flights of circular staircase. The mansion is dark and cramped. Tall, narrow halls, Gothic arches, rooms stuffed in all corners with kitschy junk. Jake has a taste for velvet paintings and faux antique candelabras, which mesh less than harmoniously with the backdrop of his paisley wallpaper. Blue light filter. Oh, that's so Jake. Blue light filters in from the stained glass windows on top of the floor of the foyer, where depictions of cerulean sirens lounge against surprisingly tasteful modernist backdrops. Jane calls his name again, lifting her skirt so that she can climb the stairs one step at a time. From the second floor, she hears a sudden and awful noise. Boots scrabbling against wood, glass shattering, hard objects hitting the wall, and the unmistakable roar of a rifle firing. She sprints the rest of the staircase and runs down the hall. Clack, clack, clack in her expensive, but understated, kitten heels.
Jake? Jake, where are you?
The big oak door at the end of the hallway swings open, spilling orange lamplight into the darkness. Jake steps out, looking ruffled but handsome in corduroy shorts and a dress shirt buttoned up to the mid-sternum. There is a smudge of gunpowder on his cheek. His whole face lights up when he sees Jane.
Oh, Jane, how unexpected. Are you all right?
What? Of course. Why wouldn't I be?
I heard a horrible noise. What was all the racket?
Oh, this? Jake grins and holds up his rifle, which is still smoking from the muzzle. Just a little morning target practice. He kicks the door all the way open behind him to show what's up. A circular sitting room festooned with Christmas lights and paper targets, all of which look as if they've been hit many times with bullets. There's a battle bot hanging out by the fireplace at the back, holding an armful of bottles and surrounded by a sea of broken glass.
You do this inside the house?
He looks at her like she's the stupid. He looks at her like she's the stupid one. Well, of course, Jane, where else would I do it? Bringing this operation outside would only startle the neighbors. Jane's mouth opens, then hangs there for a moment as she decides whether or not this particular conversation on household propriety is worth having. Sometimes Jake simply cannot be blamed for the foolish things he does. After all, he literally grew up in the woods. Instead, she enters the room and takes a seat in one of the ostentatiously cushioned bergère chairs, careful to step around the puddles of cracked glass. I must ask, Jane, it seems that you are rather frazzled. Are you sure you aren't the one who's not all right? Jane rests her temple in her palm. Jake grabs another of his ridiculous fake Victorian chairs by the back and swivels it around so he's sitting across from her. Have you talked to Dirk lately? Not exactly. I would say that I have been talked to by Dirk, but the communique has certainly not been two-sided.
Ah, yes. Seems we're in the same boat then.
I haven't heard from him. I stopped by his workshop, but it was locked. If he was in there, he wouldn't come out. Dirk was the one person on Earthsea who took the state of the locksmith industry with the seriousness it deserved. Jake scoffs and flops a hand. Both actions are dismissive. I don't see what all the ruckus is. Our good chum Dirk fancies himself a dark and tortured soul. Cutting us off is not entirely out of his wheelhouse.
Yes, but not like this. It's been years since he's done a full blackout on us. Oh, I'm terribly worried.
You worry far too much, Jane. Life has been so peaceful on this new planet of ours that I suppose if Dirk has merely been tired of this idyllic life. It has either driven him to permanently or temporarily insane. That's my theory, at least. Maybe it's Tommy Rot, but I have faith that Dirk will be back. After all, where is he going to go? You seem rather cavalier about this. Like, even more cavalier than you usually are. Jake laughs, all uneven, and runs a hand through his attractively tousled hair. I must admit, I'm rather half-rats at the moment. You're what? Sorry, that was a pretty obtuse way of putting it, wasn't it? What I mean to say is I've been powdering my hair quite a bit today. Powdering my hair quite a bit today. He makes a motion like knocking back a bottle. James side-eyes the idling BattleBot, flush with empty wine bottles, and then side-eyes Jake. First thing in the morning? Well, I need the bottles for my target practice, Jane. I couldn't just pour the wine down the drain. That'd be a waste. Jane frowns, then leans forward on her knees so that she can examine Jake more closely. She sees it now. The unspecifically precise movement that comes from overcorrecting drunken body language, the unfocus of the eyes. That was a very detailed thesis he had on Dirk's potential psychology, almost like he'd been giving it a good think. She knew that Jake and Dirk were not officially together, and had not been for some time, but their lives were still inexorably entwined on basically every level for some reason she did not understand. One might even say codependently. No matter what he said, this had been affecting him as well. Jane lets out a fluttering breath. You know what, Jake? You're right. It really would have been a waste. She pushes out of the chair and goes to retrieve one of the unopened wine bottles sitting over the fireplace. They're all screw-top because Jake isn't that classy. In fact, he isn't classy at all. His veneer of classiness is about as authentic as an off-brand Halloween mask. Jane has no idea why she can't get him out of her system, even after all these years. She braces herself on the mantel and knocks her head back, taking a long, uninterrupted swig from the bottle. Jeepers, Jane, slow down! Jane keeps gulping. She drinks until she can't stand it, then breaks off, shaking her head and letting out an ungraceful hiss. Golly, that is cheap Merlot. Her vision is already swimming. Spilling a bit of wine on herself, she spins around to stare at the silent BattleBot. It's got its hand out, waiting for her to hand over the bottle. Could you leave us alone, please? The BattleBot tips its head at her with a quick whir, then looks at Jake, who traitorously offers exactly zero backup. Dejectedly, the bot shuffles its way out of the room, but not before dropping every single one of its bottles it was holding so that they make as much noise as possible when hitting the floor. It slams the door behind it. Ah, yes, Jane thinks. Scorched earth policy. That robot was indeed programmed by Dirk Strider. Jake is staring at Jane wide-eyed behind his spectacles. Jane, I must ask again, are you quite all right? Actually, no, I am quite not. I will say, you really seem like you've got the morbs. She's morbing out. She staggers back to her seat and takes another swig of disgusting wine. I cancelled my presidential bid. What? I was under the impression that you were awfully chuffed about that. I was so incredibly chuffed about it, Jake, but Dirk called me just before his disappearance and told me to cancel everything, and so... Jane puts her face in her hand miserably. I cancelled everything. Why, Jane, do you really need Dirk to run for president? I know he had set himself up as your... I'm not even gonna try. I'm not even gonna try.
Plenipotentiary.
Plenipotentiary. I know he set himself up as your plenipotentiary, but it seems to me that you have everything you need to win the day without him. Jane looks at the Jake between her fingers and under her bangs. Yes, I suppose that I could run a successful presidential campaign on my own merits, especially since Dirk and I developed most of our strategy together. But now that I've pulled out, I can't just go back and tell them I've changed my mind. That would be so embarrassing. It would make me look wishy-washy. I can see the headlines now calling me a terminal flip-flopper. Also, somehow it just doesn't seem right without Dirk. Jake pries the wine bottle away from her hand gently. He takes a drink from it, less gently. Dirk has that manner about him, does he not? Way about him that makes you feel like whatever you do, as long as it does not involve him, doesn't count for Dick. He sounds a little bitter. Jane blinks at him. I hadn't thought about it that way. But yes, ever since I talked to him, I have felt Strange. Her whole body is numb and floaty. Sure, she chugged the wine, but it's strange to have gotten drunk so fast, isn't it? Especially since she spends several nights a month drinking much harder and fancier drinks and investor dinners. Jake passes the bottle back and she takes another drink. Strange how? Strange like you just explained. Like nothing I do matters. I should be more upset that I've spoiled my chance at running for president, but for some reason I find myself not really caring. And that's what I'm actually so upset about. The fact that I don't care. Instead, when did Jake scoot his chair closer? They're sitting packed so tight right now that his bare knees are brushing hers. The air between them is warm and wine-soaked. Jane takes another serious... I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Never mind, I'm not going to sneeze anymore. Jane takes another serious look at him, at his elegant jawline, his dark eyelashes, his handsome nose. It really is unfair that he's so good-looking while also being so Jake. But this is nice, she thinks. When was the last time they talked? Really talked. It's been such a long time that she's almost surprised how good he's being to her right now, considering that she walked in on him in peak English disaster mode. Was it always this easy to talk to him? Maybe because of the wine, and maybe just because she wants to. Jane reaches out and sets a hand on his thigh. She leans in closer until she can feel his breath on her face. This is mortifying to admit, but I've been thinking that perhaps I've been doing the wrong thing with my life. Instead of all this business politicking, I've been doing what I'd really like, is to settle down and raise a family. Does that sound ridiculous? Why, that doesn't sound ridiculous at all. It's just that I've never heard you express such sentiments before. Except, of course, for the time when you were under mind control and had me trussed up in your lair as you pontificated villainously about using me as a breeding stud to create a blood lineage for your incubant corporate space empire. Oh, you still remember that. Jane, you're one of my most cherished friends. I couldn't possibly forget a single moment we spent together, no matter how sexually uncomfortable the situation may have been. Jane feels herself turn red. Why did she think this would be so easy? Jake English was kind of a slut, true, but also their relationship was an emotional minefield. She slides her hand down to cup his knee, rolls her thumb into the clip of the joint there, and tries to remember the drunken advice on matters of seduction Jade gave her once when she was foolish enough to take a weekend off and go on one of her and Jake's expeditions. She can't for the life of her remember the substance of any of her lessons, though. Jake is still staring at her, drunken and enraptured. She ventures deeper into his personal space. Well, Jake, it doesn't always have to be that way. Putting business first, ignoring the good things in my life, chasing profit. I'm sick of it. I think I could be loving. I could be a good wife for the kind of man who needs a good wife in his life. Like, say, an eligible bachelor with 100 empty rooms in his house and no one to help clean them, who has been recently and mysteriously abandoned by all his long-term companion, or whatever he was. Someone handsome and lonely, who knows me well enough that we need not fear showing each other our less savory sides, such as being drunk at 9 in the morning. Jake, isn't that the dream? Jake slants close, casting a shadow over her face. His eyes are so green, and they're glittering with naked adoration for her. It's all for her. He nudges a knuckle under her chin and tips her face toward him. Jane. He's so close that Jane thinks he might kiss her. She shuts her eyes and lets his husky wine breath wash over her face. Instead of kissing her, he says, I say this sincerely as one of your oldest and dearest friends. I hope that you have luck in finding a charming and bricky bloke who will summarily impregnate you with as much swiftness as possible and be a responsible father for your children. There is nothing I want for you more. Oh, Jesus Christ. Jane's mouth drops open. What was she expecting? But Jake doesn't register her mortification or frustration either. He just keeps smiling and gazing into her eyes, warm and drunk. Well then. With a deep sigh, Jane shoves Jake off her and stumbles back to where his horrendous tasting wine is stored. She pops open a bottle of briny-smelling Moscato and tips it back. This embarrassing encounter isn't going to forget itself. Oh, Jake. What a goober. Chapter 7. John's been spending a lot of time with Roxy lately, which also means spending a lot of time with Calliope, which is awkward, but fine. But it also means spending a lot of time with Gamzee, which is awkward and not even remotely fine. John, Roxy, and Calliope are taking a stroll through downtown New Prospect. Gamzee's here too, a couple of feet behind John, doing essentially the same thing that the other three are doing, which is walking at a leisurely pace, but he's being so weird about it that you can't really call it strolling. It's more like he's holding court while somehow remaining in motion. Ever since he popped out of that fridge smelling like a sweaty foot, he's been all wise and sage-like. John considers that if he were using these two descriptors out loud, he'd make air quotes while saying them. He'd then say Gamzee's acting almost like a priest, which is a word he would also make air quotes around due to how insanely full of shit John still believes him to be. Roxy and Calliope, however, apparently do not believe him to be full of shit for some reason. Isn't that nice? Huh? Gamzee is leading a line of adoring carapacians trailing behind him, telling them stupid fake Zen stuff like, "You gotta stop to smell the seed fronds, my dudes." Not to be specious or anything, but the sight is kind of worrying because John knows all too well how susceptible carapacians are to grassroots populism. He has it on good authority that virtually any schmuck can blunder into a crowd of them, say a few inspirational words, and incite revolutionary fervor amongst the masses. John tries his best to ignore it and walk ahead, but Roxy loops her arm around him and pulls him back. "We're here, check it." "Where's here?" "Me and Callie's fave cafe." It's a nice big place. Big oval windows, flowers on the tables. It's got a Frenchish aesthetic. John says ish because everything on Earthsea is sort of ish. Alternian-ish, Durst-ish, Japanese-ish. He'd even describe the sky as being kind of blue-ish. Sometimes it's more turquoise than anything, too crisp and bright like the old Earth sky seen through a pair of tinted novelty glasses. John doesn't mean to be cynical about it, but he guesses that's just the mood he's in. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that Calliope insisted on including an unbelievably smelly clown on an otherwise perfectly pleasant stroll. That's it? We're going to a coffee shop? I got out of bed for this? Oh, John, you're so funny. No, seriously, Roxy, I feel like I haven't left my house in years, and with all that stuff that's been going on, like Rose's illness, or that stuff about the political situation, is it really a good idea for us to be having picnics and going out to coffee shops? Oh, John, don't worry so much about things that you have no control over. Like I said the other day, it's time for us to leave ugly things behind us. Yeah, for real, John, can't you just enjoy what a beautiful day it is? I know I'm enjoying it since I got to spend it with you. Like I've always been wanting. You have. Yeah, duh. She tugs him against her sides and rests her head on his shoulder. She's a bit taller than him in her nice shoes, so it's kind of awkward. Feels uncomfortable to him, and looks more so for her. But he's enjoying the attention. Sort of. He missed her the way she used to be when the two of them were close as kids. She's laying it on a little thick for his benefit right now, and while he can appreciate that, it can be difficult to rekindle a friendship after it's gone cold for a while. John wishes the rekindling period would hurry up and end already so they can go back to just shooting the shit like normal. Roxy drags him into the cafe. Calliope doesn't follow them in for reasons he can only guess at. He catches a glimpse of her through the window, a little forlorn, Gamzee at her side like a faithful dog. He can't hear what they're saying. Outside, Calliope clasps her hands and directs a wistful expression through the cafe window, foot traffic splitting lazily around her and Gamzee as they stand in the busy street. At high noon, her little body casts almost no shadow on the cobblestone road.
What's shaking, sis? You look bummed all the fuck out. How can you be feeling down when we be getting all redeemed and shit up in here?
Oh, it's just...
Can't you see what's happening with Roxy and John? Gamzee stares through the window. Roxy is leaning across the table to dab at the corner of John's mouth with a napkin. John looks very confused because they aren't actually eating anything yet. Gamzee stares at this for a very long time, his mouth lolling open as he contemplates what is transpiring with the closest facsimile, I think is what that is, to wisdom he can muster. He puts one of his huge hands on Calliope's narrow shoulder, all comforting like.
Oh, yeah. For sure your girl Roxy is all globes deep in that dude's dank nook.
Yes. And while I can't say I didn't see this coming, it's all happening so fast, I thought for sure I'd have more time with her.
Would a motherfucker like me to...
Gamzee leans in so his face is level with Calliope's. His grin shows every single one of his teeth. Miraculously, his breath smells worse than his body.
Motherfucking do something about it.
No! Gamzee, no! Please, it's fine. I may be sad, but John has made his choice, and we must all live with the repercussions of that. I'm sure that Roxy will be very happy with him. We're all going to be very, very happy. I truly believe that. Calliope walks away, looking somewhat less than very, very happy. Gamzee remains standing in front of the cafe, still not entirely convinced that he shouldn't motherfucking do something about it. John notices him there, just outside the window, leering at him and Roxy. His expression is serene, vacant. Calliope is nowhere to be seen. Hey, Roxy? What's up? Gamzee. He's staring at us, and it's kind of creeping me out. Oh, yeah, don't worry about that. He gets stuck like that sometimes. Stuck? All blocked out and shit. I think he's got brain damage from being a burnout. It's so sad. Is it? Roxy takes a sip of her tea. Her purple lipstick leaves a stain on the fine china. Yeah, John, it's totes sad. He never had a chance with the kind of life he had. What a tragic, misunderstood figure. Roxy sighs and spears the cherry atop her cheesecake with the absurdly tiny dessert fork it was served with. Could not see the screen because there was a cat covering it. We're good now. She pops it in her mouth with a pouty little pop, staring directly at John with her eyes half-lidded. He thinks she might be trying to be sexy, but he's a bit distracted by the sight of Gamzee lumbering into the cafe with all the grace of an aubergine Sasquatch sporting an epic erection. He puts both hands on the back of Roxy's chair and looms over her. Without breaking eye contact with John, Roxy scoops up a spoonful of cheesecake and feeds it to him.
Hey, Roxita.
Hey, Gams, what's shaking?
Callie went all running off. Ugh.
Aw, hope she's feeling alright.
She's motherfucking fine. She said some noise about cause of what John did. We're all gonna be happy family of fucking ninjas for motherfucking ever.
What? Gamzee, you're one silly dude. To be honest, pretty psyched to see you going through all this redemption shit. I bet you gotta make a baller part of our greater ensemble if you're given the chance. John attempts to furtively gesture his disapproval with the entire situation toward Roxy by vaguely swiping his neck in a horizontal direction with his fingers, but she doesn't notice. Instead, she puts her fork down, slides her chair out, and springs to her feet with an abundance of this newfound enthusiasm he's been struggling to understand. BRB, gonna hit the ladies' room. Back into Jeff's suckers. Alright. John, in the date's repulsive third wheel, watches as she scurries to the back of the establishment. The moment the door to the bathroom closes, Gamzee lumbers into a sitting position across the table from John, without the slightest deviation in his heinously awkward comportment. He puts his forearms on the table in front of him, folds his hands, and gazes into John's eyes with what he has come to identify as Gamzee's signature brand of faux serenity.
My fucking guy. My dude and my ninja alike. My horn dog. My horn to the motherfucking dog.
Waiter! Help! John desperately waves to attract some service in the hopes that it will provide a social buffer for the appalling interaction that is presently taking place. But no carapaces seemed to be close enough to heed his request.
I see what's fucking up, my good Verdi brother. All's about I could say is game recognized motherfucking game. You got no secrets from this motherfucker, egg boy. A man stays locked in another man's hunger trunk long enough, ain't got much left to fucking hide from one another.
Actually, that wasn't even my fridge. It was Jane's. I mean, we've basically got the same.
Shut the fuck up. I'm getting real at a motherfucker right now. I've been redeemed, yo. I said my stories and redeemed the shit out of myself, didn't you see?
Yeah.
So it's incumbent on a motherfucker to spread the redemption. You should get your redemption on too, my choicest of dudes, my dankest of dogs. See, a motherfucker knows you got this bitch on a rope. It's time to pull her into your tent. I could smell it on you, brother. You've wasted years letting this premium hoe slip through your fingers. Less fucking constable than any crude stunt I pulled in my day, I must tell you. A capital motherfucking crime to be squandering earth pussy like that.
Holy shit.
But I'm all getting you back here, bro. I can be your wingman in this carnal fucking caper. I can help a little bitch like you romantically redeem his sorry ass. Let a motherfucker help a motherfucker out. A popcorn skillet's piping hot for you already. You just need a tidy, loyal boy like me to start shoveling in the corn.
Thinking it unwise to break eye contact with this lunatic, John nods very slowly as he listens, while taking a secret snap of his ghoulish face to send to Terezi. Before John submits, he tags the photo with a message. I absolutely fucking hate this. Too much candy will make you sick, huh?